my experience is that when we're judgmental, we're operating out of a space of control or fear or lack of the Holy Spirit for some other reason. And it usually comes from something we missed in childhood, whether it's an injury that we're aware of or a neglect that we didn't have, something we don't even know we're missing. But that shows up in the way that we interact and expect things from other people. Most people believe that if they work on their conflict management skills, if they develop the ability to not be defensive, and then speak about their issues, their problems with their partner in a way that is encouraging and builds them up and solves problems and doesn't make the other person defensive, they think that dealing with conflict will make their relationship better. And that is true to a certain extent, but there's a sad surprise awaiting on the other end of attending an intensive or reading all the books and going to counseling and working through the things that teach you how to do conflict well. And the sad surprise is simply this: if you don't also have a good, beautiful friendship where there's trust, where there's support, where there's encouragement, if you don't have that, the 20 positive interactions to every one negative that Dr. John Gottman talks about, well, the research is in. If you don't have those also, in addition to the ability to solve conflict, then your relationship isn't any good anyway. It's the sad truth that people need to understand. You can do the conflict training. You can master some of those skills. I mean, they're learnable. But if you're not also building the friendship and developing trust and working towards each other in a healthy way, in a positive way, where you have 20 positive interactions for every one negative on average, and then during conflict itself, if you don't make use of those skills also and have 5 positive interactions for every one negative, well, guess what? You're still in trouble. People get bored. People are discouraged. People don't know what to do to find the relationship that they're looking for. So today, I want to give you one very small but super important skill that you can use that will help. And it's called debrief your day. Now, this involves some other skills, specifically the one of validation. So I'm going to teach you what validation is first. It's simply a process by which you communicate understanding to the other person. It's not saying, I agree with you. It's when you meet your partner, no matter where they're at, and you validate their experience. If I were to write a 3 on the wall here, and you looked at it, you'd see a 3. But if you were standing to the side, or if you were standing above it, you might see a W or an E. So it's all about perspective. If you're a police officer and you're talking to people after a car wreck or a crime being committed, you talk to as many as you possibly can, because within all the different people, you're going to hear, if there's 8 people that witnessed it, you're going to hear 8 different stories. Everybody has a valid experience, a valid perception. And it is arrogant and prideful of us to think that we're the ones that have the right perception. We are entitled to the one that we hold. But the reason we hold that perspective in the first place is a result of our upbringing. It's a result of the things we've been exposed to. It's a result of our connection with the Holy Spirit, because here's the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. And in our arrogance, in our pride, we're not operating in the Holy Spirit. And so when we hold a different perspective and we don't have the ability to say to somebody, wow, that's hard, you're feeling XYZ because you saw your boss, tear up your report with anger, or your boss said a thing to you at work today and it just felt out of line to you. Your perspective of one of, well, you deserve that, or, if you'd have been on time, that wouldn't have happened. Whatever that judgment is, that's at the root of that is pride. And so that is not operating in the Holy Spirit. And I'm not condemning you for that. I have this same issue. And it's usually based, my experience 100% of the time is I've been working with people for over 30 years, y'all. And my experience is that when we're judgmental, we're operating out of a space of control or fear or lack of the Holy Spirit for some other reason. And it usually comes from something we missed in childhood, whether it's an injury that we're aware of or a neglect that we didn't have, something we don't even know we're missing. But that shows up in the way that we interact and expect things from other people. So when your spouse comes home from work, here's what you say: hey, how was your day? And then your job as the listener is to validate and listen non-judgmentally without trying to fix whatever it is they give you. Okay. And the evidence around this is really interesting. One of Dr. John Gottman's PhD students uh, ran a study on trying to figure out, this training that I did 2 years ago, did it work? Are these couples still together? All that kind of thing. And nobody 2 years later was using any of the training that they went through. But 50% of the couples were like totally done with each other and miserable back the way they were before the training. The other 50% were not. And so the researchers went, well, why is that? What is going on here? And what they found is they were doing this thing called a stress reducing conversation. And it was at the end of the day, they'd sit down together and they'd say, hey, so how was your day? So in partners that would ask that question, and then the response was positive, like, oh, you know what? I had this thing and, this great thing happened, and their partner went, hey, that's awesome. Good for you. Instead of a negative reaction, like, well, why didn't that happen sooner? Like, you've been applying for promotions for 6 years. Like, why are you getting considered for one now? Like, or some sort of sarcastic comment, or, oh, I can help you fix this thing. Instead of that, they just listened and validated. That's it. That's hard for people. And it's hard to the extent, to the degree that we lack the skill of validation. And so I want to challenge you with the opportunity to listen without judgment, just to meet your partner where they're at, even if they want to go, to work the next day and, blow up the building or whatever. There'll be time to calm them down from that later. And you'll find that if you just agree with them that everybody's terrible in the moment when they need you to, and side with them and not the enemy, what happens is the energy they have dissipates. The negative energy, it's gone because somebody witnessed it. Someone looked at it, cared about them, and validated them. And as crazy as that sounds, the the bomb planning or the I'm just going to go tell him off tomorrow, it's gone. Most of the time that dissipates. And if it doesn't, if your partner's stuck on this really irrational thing, hearing you say back to them, so let me see if I get this straight. And boy, howdy, I get it that you're upset. Like, being publicly taken down at work like that in front of your peers, that nobody deserves to be treated like that. Like, that's got to hurt and be awful. You want to go in there tomorrow and rip his head off and scream at him in front of everybody. And you think he deserves that. If I'm hearing you properly, you just want to like go in there with, both guns blazing and, fist punching and, verbal assault full on. And your partner can go, yeah, I do. And you can go, yeah, that, I don't blame you for feeling like that. That's rough. Like, who wouldn't feel like that? Of course you feel like that. And in that moment, most of the time, your partner is going to come back to reality. They're going to rejoin you in this sane space of, wow, I could get fired if I do that. And, go to jail if I blow up the building, worse things. And they don't even really mean it. But when we push back on them and say, well, have you thought of, approaching your boss about XYZ, or have you thought of apologizing for the rude thing that you did? Even when they're wrong, they'll hang on to the wrong thing that they did because they don't feel heard. So the most important thing we can do is add this debrief your day skill to our repertoire, which involves the skill of validation. Try it. Let us know what you think. And pop over to our website at greaterimpact.org and grab the free PDF, Stop walking on eggshells. Let us know how it goes.